And I now recognize the gentlelady from Texas, Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Let me thank the chair and the ranking member for their courtesy. And let me, first of all, acknowledge and appreciate the service of each and every one of you, having not served, but having family members who have served, and having the good fortune of serving in the United States Congress, to go on to most all military war zones, including the very first one, the Bosnia war that was going on with then Republican leadership, going in before the Dayton Peace Treaty was signed, and then tragically Afghanistan during the action. I was not in action, but I was one of the few members that were in, and as well Iraq, and then subsequent places as well, including the DMZ in North and South Korea. So let me say to Honorable Nathan Sales and Simone Ledeen and Colonel Christopher Douglas, service that you've given, Dr. Schroden, we appreciate the service in the myriad of ways that you have done so. And I will not get into the Marine Navy debate at this point, just to say they are very fine men and women who serve in both of those branches of the United States military, including all others. But what I'd like to do is to take on the task very quickly of understanding the inherited chaotic withdrawal that was a result of Trump's Taliban deal. And how do I know this? Because I met with, unfortunately, obviously, the president of Afghan did not show himself well in that moment, but I met with his leadership preceding and the First Lady, who came and begged for the Afghan government to be involved, to no avail. No one listened. And so let me quickly, Dr. Schroden, just quickly indicate that with the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense, Donald Trump came into office 2017, approximately 11,000 troops. He wanted 3,005, well, he gave permission to add troops, 3,500 were added. Additional troops were NATO-led. They were 14 to 15,000. By mid-2018, President Trump was reportedly frustrated with the lack of military progress against the Taliban, and he ordered formal and direct U.S. talks without the Afghan government participating for the first time. As those talks developed under Special Representative, who I knew as well, Khalilzad, who we met with several times, President Trump continued to express frustration with the U.S. military mission in Afghanistan and a desire to withdraw U.S. troops, saying in August 2019 that he wanted to do so quickly, as quickly as we can. And then, of course, the withdrawal commitment was not conditioned on Taliban reducing violence against the Afghan government, making concessions in intra-Afghan talks, or taking other actions, which we saw with a complete condemnation of women, destroying of small businesses, and destroying Kabul, the real heart of democracy there. And the United States was not able to remain indefinitely, and the American public's patience as well was getting. And so in February 2020, the United States and Taliban signed the agreement that committed to withdrawing all of its troops, contracts, non-diplomatic civilian from Afghanistan, with a drawdown forces of 8,600 by mid-July, and then on to April 21. Very quickly, if I might. Dr. Schroden, what are your thoughts on the Trump-Taliban deal, particularly the Trump administration negotiating directly with the Taliban, planning to invite them on U.S. soil and negotiating with them absent the Afghan government? Did that not contribute to the mix of the controversy? And in addition, as well, DHS indicated that it was such a rush, they didn't have a system to vet everyone. That's something we should look at. But if I yield to you on that question, please.
Sure, thank you, ma'am. I would say the decision to negotiate without the Afghan government in the room was made largely because that was the only way that negotiations would proceed. The President Obama had tried to negotiate with the Taliban previously, had insisted on a precondition being that they negotiate with the Afghan government there, and they refused. So that condition was the only way to get the Taliban to sit down and begin talks. That said, again, Ambassador Khalilzad's, going in proposition was that nothing would be agreed until everything was agreed, and everything included a framework for structured negotiations between the Afghan government and the Taliban as part of the end point of the agreement. And that point was conceded The agreement that was signed in February only established that as a follow-on step to be taken. It was not an integral part of the agreement itself.
So they rolled over the Afghan government at the end. You're saying they couldn't get to the table because they couldn't get the Taliban to the table with them there. Let me just say that I was not at the table for negotiations, so I'm going to be a Democrat that's going to second guess. I don't think that was, I stand with President Obama on that, and I don't think that we should have left the government out. We should have found a way to have the government in, maybe bilateral negotiations. Was there anything that you saw that resulted in, can you just be specific, that resulted in the calamity because the Afghan government was not in the end results, if you could?
Well, so I wasn't involved in the negotiations directly, so I can't speak to specific, points of discussion. Certainly, the Afghan government was frustrated by the fact that they were not in the room. President Ghani and his national security advisor expressed that frustration quite openly, to include in hearings here in Washington, D.C. on multiple occasions. And so, yes, they were quite frustrated by the fact that they were not in the room for those talks.
Do you see any homeland implications on
The
this
gentlelady's time has expired.
And I thank the gentleman. Could I just let him answer, Mr. Chairman, this last point?
Ma'am, you're a minute and 15 seconds over.
Am
If we can make it real quick, I'll let you.
Homeland security implications of the agreement signed.
The Homeland Security is really outside of my area of expertise, ma'am, in terms of the DHS aspect of it.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
I only let you go longer because you said something really nice about the Navy, but, all right.
I truly believe it. Thank you. I yield back.